What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Welcome to Dynasty Points. This week we have football for the first time this season on our televisions. And with that comes a shift in focus for us. We have given you sleepers, busts, breakouts, best and worst draft picks, every thumbnail clickbaity topic people have wanted this Dynasty offseason. But now, over the next 4 weeks, we will cover important Dynasty topics from every division in each conference, 2 on each show. So I'm excited to do that. Before we move on, we only have 34.5% of our watch hours coming from subscribers. It helps us out a ton. If you can just hit that subscribe button, help us feed our families so we can continue to put out the best content we can. It also helps us know exactly what kind of content you are all looking for. So hit that subscribe button if you have not already. I, of course, am your host with the most time on his hands. I am Thomas Dibble. You can find me at El Nostra Thomas. My fun fact today is that with this being now the 6th season, I believe, of the home league, as the 5-time defending division champion in my division in the home league.
I was waiting for the division to come up. I was like, what? I was like, are we spreading misinformation online?
My only remaining player from the startup draft that year is still Lamar Jackson. He is the only player remaining on the roster.
Wow. Well, I had a different fun fact, but since Tom brought up the home league, I guess it's as good a time as any to just make my fun fact that I'm the one-time defending champion of the actual league. Not
division or actual? Yeah.
Actual full league.
Hold on.
And beat Tom in the finals.
That would be Tom's second trip to the finals, and I'm 1-1 in the finals, so let's not get it mistaken.
There is, I believe, 4 or 5 months until I become 2-time defending champion of the Frozen Tundra Dynasty League. So that's the other fun fact.
Well, I am Ryan Heath at RyanJ_Heath. I'm not in these guys' home league, so I can't give you any fun facts about that. I'm sure both of them are lying in some way. I imagine there's some sort of like collusion to control this narrative between the two of them about how they're dominating their home league. But my fun fact is that I'm bringing back the seltzer-based fun facts because those were a big hit previously. I have made a change. I am no longer drinking the cherry seltzer. I have moved on to bigger and better things. I have the lemon sorbet flavored seltzer now.
Okay.
That's what's going to keep my voice fresh throughout this podcast. So that's the best I could come up with.
Poor Ryan, between writing articles for the
sponsor me,
between writing articles for the new ass getting debuted and multiple podcasts today, we're putting you to work.
Are these alcoholic seltzers or are these non-alcoholic seltzers?
The non-alcoholic seltzers only. I would never partake in an alcoholic seltzer. I don't even know what those are.
This is an alcoholic beer right here. This is Caribou Genuine, brewed with pure spring water of British Columbia. This is a nice green label. You can get a 6-pack of these for $7.99 at your local BC liquor store. Anything's possible in this economy when you buy local products.
Oh my God. All right. So obviously with training camp,
is that like $4 USD, $7.99 Canadian?
That'd probably be about $6 USD there, Mr. Canada hater. But yeah, it's basically buck a beer. This is a good value product right here, the Caribou Genuine Lager.
Unbelievable.
With obviously training camp news, every day a new player is the new favorite because he caught a pass, and an hour later he's now the most hated because he dropped a pass. Quentin Johnson still can't play football. Jamison Williams is all of a sudden due for a breakout because he caught one ball at half speed. This is just the type of season where you can really get lost down narrative street. This is it. What we did today is we're bringing back Do We Care, which is training camp news that is actionable, that we actually give a shit about for Dynasty with real Dynasty implications. I want to start it off today with this from Joe Goodberry. He tweeted, I expect a 50-50 split with a chance for Chase Brown to win the thing, meaning the job in Cincinnati. Moss is here for pass pro. Brown has done everything they've asked of him from last year to this year. He is at least Jaylen Warren, which this is somebody who at RB 30.
You might not be aware. Get ready to learn yards after contact per attempt there, buddy, before we start comparing people to Jaylen Warren. I don't know if we saw, I'm already derailing the show at minute 6 here, but I don't know if anyone saw my personal Madden ratings of the top 15 running backs.
Jaylen Warren is up there.
The comment people thought that ranking Jaylen Warren as the 8th best running back in the NFL was pretty ludicrous. I got more negative feedback for that than my political takes.
pretty extreme, but I think this is a good signal for, I have been on the Chase Brown wagon the entire offseason because we hammer home on this show all the time. If they're cheap, why not? There's zero cost to acquire in startups. This is not a player that's going anywhere near you need to be afraid if he is ass. But we're talking about an opportunity to get very substantial touches and what should be a very good offense. I'm all for it.
Tom, close your ears for 1 second, okay?
Okay.
I've been with you on this big time.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
Oh my God. 19% best ball exposure to Chase Brown, baby. 0% Zach Moss. What is July news cycles if you can't prematurely victory lap your best ball exposures? Deeply irresponsible thing to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. It is kind of interesting. We'll see if this manifests with Chase Brown, but I don't recall 4 or 5 years ago teams letting these year one dud running backs actually elevate into roles the way that they seem willing to now. Like Zamir White, is a good example of a guy who did literally nothing year one, then did mostly nothing for half the season, and then, gets this big opportunity, and it looks like he's going to have a chance to be the feature back. Ty Chandler is a guy who did literally nothing in year one. They entrusted him with a role towards last year. He's probably going to have some sort of role again this year. I'm trying to think of other examples. Surely there are some, because we've been sort of seeing this trend. Jerome Ford, another guy who did literally nothing his first year, ends up having quite a solid role next year. Mm-hmm. It seems like that pathway to maybe not like, hey, you're our starter, but at least you're our 1B, is a more of a legitimate thing happening right now in the NFL than it used to be, where previously at the running back position, we could just kind of write these guys off if they didn't really do anything in year one. At this point, it might be kind of a goodbye to some of these rookie running backs this year that get redshirted year one. Very different than at wide receiver, where wide receiver, we don't really see that. We never really saw that. We still don't really see that in terms of guys coming up from the abyss, but it seems like that's the trend at running back. I'm pretty excited about Chase Brown.
Yeah, I told you guys in the show chat a couple nights ago that I'm bending the knee on Chase Brown. I was wrong. Kind of like Jakob just laid out. I feel like I was stuck kind of in that mindset from that. Really was correct up until maybe a year or two ago, where it's like, yeah, very rarely do these day 3 running backs that don't make any real immediate impact in year one actually go on to have any sort of a role after that. Like it used to be a pretty safe bet of like, okay, if there's a day 3 running back, he's not really a lock at all for even a roster spot, like in year 2 or year 3. And that was kind of my thought with Chase Brown. I'm like, this is like a fantasy Twitter fabrication Like I get his explosive run rate and his yards after contact look really good, but like, does anybody in an actual NFL decision maker room think this much of Chase Brown? Like he was outside the top 120 in PFF pass block rate. I was like, this just has all the trappings of something that Twitter makes up in the summer, and he shows up and is not even in consideration for the RB2 role. But yeah, I was completely wrong. This flips like all of the assumptions I'd kind of been making about this backfield. Mm-hmm. And now I am there where, yeah, I'd rather take the chance on the year 2 player who has like some interesting small sample efficiency stuff than a Zach Moss who had never even gone over, I think 125 touches was the most he'd ever had in a season before last year. So there's not much sample or reason to think that Zach Moss is that really anywhere close to a workhorse or an entire season starter in this league. So yeah, give me all the Chase Brown if that is what's going to benefit on the other side of that. So yeah, I'm in now, I guess, in all formats.
And again, it's just cheap, right? Herms asked, do we worry the Bengals' actual future RB that matters for Dynasty is currently in college? I mean, probably. But that doesn't matter for right now. And for right now, if you're a team that, if you're somebody like me who doesn't like to draft running backs pre like end of 7th to, I don't know, the 12th round, Jakob hammered this home. He said, any RB on a 53, Chase Brown's not only that, but an opportunity to actually RB2 or flex for you from week 1 on is, and then, yeah, you can sell, you can get out when the time is right. Sure, you can just ride that wave, but I'm not really concerned about 2025 for RB 37 in July of 2024. Does that make sense?
You're getting that for free, right? I mean, his price, he's priced with 1-year guys. I mean, and what's fairly priced in is that, as much as we're doing the July 30th victory lap, it's very possible that Zach Moss still winds up having more fantasy points in this backfield this year. You're buying in that uncertainty right now. And if Chase Brown does become the guy this year that's leading that committee, anything you get beyond 2024 is basically free, in my view. Right. And then the other guy that I missed out on, of course, that I forgot to mention that fits into this category of like year 1 zeros who was obviously the biggest one, which is Kendre Williams, who I forgot to mention. But, another guy where, you look at that rookie year and you go, really? This guy's in your plans? And it turns out he was really, really in their plans.
Yeah. I should just, before we move on quickly, I'm realizing in real time that I gave a very detailed argument on the Football Guys Dynasty show last night against Jalen Wright for kind of this exact reason, where I was saying, look, how often do we go into a guy's rookie season saying, okay, he's unlikely to really see the field here unless there's an injury, or it would be a very minor role maybe later in the season. My argument was how often does a day 3 guy who has that type of rookie season ever turn out to be anything or even show up to camp the next year and have a role waiting for him? But Jalen Wright could very easily be the next one in this trend. So yeah, just I guess I'm rescinding my argument that I gave not on this show, but I guess just wanted to mention that.
We have another day 3 back that we're going to talk about now in the news, because it just kind of fits a conversation from 32 beat writers. Despite the offensive struggles, rookie running back Dylan Laube has quickly made a strong impression. He started to get reps with the first team offense as a 3rd down running back and has also worked on special teams with the kick returner, something we figured he'd have to do. The Raiders haven't run the ball much in these padless practices, obviously, but Laube has looked smooth as a receiver. Pierce described him as special last week, and Getsy raved about him on Monday. Now, take away everything we know about Getsy and his opinions. Everything else seems at least pretty good. We can't forget that our own Alex Becerra did point out that he did almost hit white skill position player bingo. In that interview, it was gritty, sneaky, and sneaky fast. He did not hit gym rat, student of the game, or football IQ. So almost, Pierce almost gave us our first white skill position player bingo. of the season. So shout out our own Alex Becerra for that. But let's talk about it, right? I believe last week it was Brian Ford that was talking when Alex and I were Alex filling in, by the way, tremendously for everyone who was sick or dying last week for this podcast. But look, we don't have him projected very highly at fantasy points right now because it's still kind of a long shot, third down back opportunity. White wasn't god awful catching the football last year. However, there's actual opportunity here for someone like Laube. And if we just finished talking about Chase Brown and you just mentioned Wright, he may not be that explosive guy because he's the first guy in and last guy out type player, but he's RB 65. Talk about free. This is a prototype anyone on the 52 type running back or 53 type running back that you should be popping onto your rosters. He was a free 4th round rookie pick. He was a waiver wire forever. I think it's only up for opportunity, and you're getting special teams. I mean, this is a coach's guy, and Pierce is like that type of dude that loves these guys. Like, you can already tell. This is a report that I'm actually taking stock in. I'm even more invested now. I'm not going out and trading seconds for him, but
please God, don't do that.
Yeah, but this is actual training camp news that I'm actually interested in for Dynasty.
Yeah, I'm excited about Laube. He's like the classic kind of old school form of the Jakob P-line trash running back guy, where he's a guy that has an easy pathway to a role, right? Can get out on the field on third downs. He's already taking first team third down snaps ahead of Amir Abdullah. The other guys on this team is Zamir White, who barely played third downs at all last year. Also never really had a pass catching profile in college. So playing that third down 2-minute role would be not something we should really expect to see from Zamir White. Mm-hmm. And that's not really in Alexander Madison's profile either. Madison profiles really as an early down insurance policy to White, but not really a complimentary back to him in a way that Laube, I think, could be. And then the exciting thing is if you're on the field, right? If you're on the field, that's half the battle. Now, if Zamir White slips up, and we haven't seen him hold up over the course of the whole season, we don't know how that's going to turn out. If he gets hurt, if Laube's already on the field, if he's already providing a role, if he's already getting in the coaches' heads, maybe his role winds up expanding instead of it just being all Madison or it just being all White. It'd be interesting to see. Not a super efficient runner in college, even at the University of New Hampshire, but a really, really next level receiving profile. All of the comps that you make on Dylan Laube are all white dudes. It's like Rex Burkhead. It's like Danny Woodhead. It's all these random guys from these small schools, these receiving profiles. But, those guys have all had moments. And especially they've had moments when things kind of happen by accident around them, where they end up adding 10 carries that you didn't know they were going to get to their existing 5-6 receptions. I'm hoping for Laube's sake that Minshew wins this job, because that's going to be a guy who is going to enjoy checking down, I think, to Dylan Laube quite a bit.
As of right now, everything that, we've seen or heard is that if Devontae Adams says AOC is the guy, he's the guy. So we can take that for what we will, and AOC definitely can check it down. So it'll be interesting.
AOC, by the way, Minshew opened camp as the favorite in betting markets to start week 1. That's flipped. AOC is now minus 130 to be the week 1 starter. That's still very much the most 50-50 line, but AOC is currently a slight favorite. I
wonder how much of that is like Adams and the Netflix documentary, right? The receivers documentary, and just like how much he hated Garoppolo, but has also come out and said that he likes AOC. And so that has completely flipped the stock. It's interesting, but you're right. Neither of these quarterbacks are people that we should be fearing won't check down realistically. So he gets on the field, like you said, someone slips up, and great opportunity there for sure. Ryan, anything to add?
Yeah, my only addition coming live from New Hampshire is that Dylan Laube is quickly approaching like Adam Sandler status, where in New Hampshire, we only have like a few famous people that are at all like related to the state in any way. So whenever it happens, everyone kind of has to pretend to like them. So we all have to pretend to really like Adam Sandler movies. So I'm just seeing into my future where everybody has to pretend that they were Dylan Laube fans from day one and always went and watched him at UNH. So yeah, sorry, no real football analysis. These guys cover.
Last really quick shout out. We don't need to have a whole discussion point on it, but I'll shout out my guy Will Shipley, also getting first team reps today with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, Barkley's
my favorite. But still, he's getting it. He's getting a lot of work in here ahead of Gainwell, which is
I think they just know what Gainwell is, which is ass.
Yeah, I mean, like no one's expecting him to be ahead of Saquon Barkley at any point. Let's not be crazy. But he can come in and be the number 2, which sounds like he's been getting pretty strong reviews.
Yeah,
Gainwell is a pretty surmountable obstacle there. Good early start for Shipley.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't Gainwell in the headlines like 2 days ago for getting first team reps and people were freaking out about it? Like we're in training camp overreaction season, I would say. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but Gainwell's the kind of guy who gets first team reps in training camp. Like when your day 3 rookie is getting first team reps in training camp, like that's my rule of thumb is like when someone's like, oh, Mac Hollins is getting more first team reps than Keon Coleman. Like I don't care. I don't care. Right. This is kind of the same thing as like there was the whole news story. Javon Baker's getting third team reps. Troy Franklin, third team reps. Like, yeah, that's usually what happens is day 3 wide receivers in the first week of training camp don't start on the first team.
Right.
Thanks for keeping me posted on that. When day 3 rookies do get first team reps, I do care about that.
You want to take notice of actually positive news. No news is one thing, good news is another. Bad news like Kendre Miller sinks you. It's so Jover for Kendre Miller.
Spit out my drink at Kendre Miller.
That is one of the worst.
It's been like 2 years of people bullying me into liking. Like people keep being like, "Why do you hate Kendre Miller? You have to like Kendre." I feel like I've been like taking crazy pills. The guy who reminds me of this year is Marshawn Lloyd. So hopefully it goes better for him, for all of you guys. Kendre Miller was like the Marshawn Lloyd of last year, where it's like everybody kept coming out of the woodwork, like banging me over the head for why I don't like Kendre Miller. But we'll see what happens with him.
I don't know.
Dennis Allen needs everyone though. Dennis Allen.
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah, is Dennis Allen coming out?
Doesn't like his family. He doesn't like what options he has to vote for. He's just a miserable prick.
Dennis Allen coming out and saying that A.T. Perry sucks makes me feel better about Kendre Miller in like a weird way. It's like, all right, I think he's just angry. He's just taking out his feelings at the microphone.
I think A.T. Perry like did something to his family. Like he has taken so many opportunities to just come out for no reason to be like, I hate A.T. Perry. This guy's garbage. Like I don't understand what's happening with that.
He's the worst head coach in football, and it's not even close. Look, we're going to take a quick break, our first one of the night, and when we come back, it's time. We have 6 dynasty debates that we are going to cut into this week. Very excited for that. Absolutely love that this time of the year is back and the content can be even more actionable. We have real stuff happening. Very excited. Sit tight. Quick break. You dominate your home, office, and family leagues every year. Now it is time to take your game to the next level. The FFPC is the place to play fantasy football this summer. There's no salary caps, no DFS, no new formats to learn, just the pure drafting fun that you've always loved. FFPC is home to multiple $1 million grand prizes, massive best ball tournaments, competitive dynasty leagues, and a multitude of exclusive formats. Didn't botch that this week. Drafts are filling every single day at myffpc.com. Begin your pursuit of millions today at myffpc.com. Gotta love when you don't botch the ad read. If you missed it, well, last time we're all here together, I'm pretty sure everyone on this program tried to give me a stroke. So if you missed it, Here's a clip from that episode. Not talking best ball in this podcast.
A few moments later.
Best ball is best ball pick, best ball.
As someone that makes the graphics for said program, it says Dynasty Points at the top. It doesn't say best ball points at the top. It's not even Dynasty best ball takes. Like, I could live with a Dynasty best ball take on the Dynasty Point show.
A few moments later.
Best ball, especially best ball, like best ball.
They're best ball 80.
Best ball.
Look, I'm not gonna survive. Like, I'm so happy that the best ball, like, we're out of it. Like, we're out of the woods almost. We're so close.
VBM is like 51% full.
Yeah.
Like, we're right at the top.
I need week 1.
Yeah. I haven't gotten most of my volume in yet, man. I've been waiting until August. Like,
I haven't even started drafting on DraftKings yet.
Yeah.
Oh
I haven't even checked in on those mouth-breathing scum.
If you guys want an Is This Best Ball t-shirt, leave a comment after the video is uploaded so I can bring it to the brass and get you guys the Dynasty Is This Best Ball t-shirt up on the Fantasy Points store. Just one of the many events that leads me to absolutely love the program we have today. But don't worry, we have Dynasty takes. I promise we have Dynasty takes.
Do an episode on Dynasty Best Ball sometime.
Ugh.
Not today, but like that's actually
Not
a good
today.
episode.
I hope
That's
not.
a good idea.
Okay, let's dive into this. We have the AFC South and the NFC South. Each one of us is going to give 2 takes, one for each conference and division, and we're going to just have a nice conversation that hopefully doesn't make this run 2 hours and 25 minutes. So we are going to dive right in. Jacob, I want to start with your first. Where would you like to start, the AFC South or the NFC South?
I'll start right at home with my Indianapolis Colts. And my take is that the Colts' best receiver is priced about 100 picks behind the Colts' second best receiver. Josh Downs is, in my view, one of the most bizarrely disrespected rookie seasons that I can recall. And I don't really know why that's the case. He finishes the year with a pretty respectable 1.60 yards per route run. Not awesome off the charts. Also very much not bad. It's substantially better than, say, Jackson Smith and Jigba, for instance. Then even more bullishly, winds up with a 93rd percentile man and press ranking for Matt Harmon's reception perception. Really, really bullish there. And if you want to dig in even a little bit further, the first 8 weeks of the season, before Josh Downs ends up picking up back-to-back injuries in weeks 9 and weeks 10, where things start to slow down after that for him. First 9 weeks of the season, Josh Downs actually has 1.79 yards per route run. Michael Pittman has 1.66 yards per route run. So as a rookie, he was coming in immediately being the more productive receiver in that room on a per route basis. All of the commentary out of camp is, it's Pittman, it's Downs, and we're battling it out for wide receiver 3 between Pierce and Mitchell. Everyone's assumption, and it might be the right assumption, is that Downs is locked into a slot-only role and that it's Mitchell versus Pierce for all of the other snaps in the wide receiver 2 role. I just don't know how many different wide receivers that we have seen over the years that start year 1 in a slot role, and everybody wants to make the rosiest case possible about how they start playing as an every down receiver, except for this guy. Like, everybody's more than willing to throw Tyler Lockett out the window so we get JSN in 2 wide receiver sets. People are excited to throw Keenan Allen out the window already so that we get rookie Rome Odunze. Jaden Reed played like literally 3 snaps in 2 wide receiver sets when Christian Watson was healthy last year. Everybody's putting him directly into 2 wide receiver sets. I get it. You want to take bets on talented players getting more playing time. Makes sense to me. I just find it particularly odd that with Downs, a guy who theoretically, based on Harmon's work, based on his open score, is a guy who can get open against man coverage, against press man coverage, which is the main logjam to an NFL player being able to play outside, why it's seemingly impossible for him. I also would simply refer you to their tight end depth chart and say, on passing plays, like, does this team really need to have more Kylan Granson Drew Ogletree, Mo Alley Cox snaps, or can we just pass out of 11 personnel 85% of the time and make all?
He said 4 Colts tight ends without saying Jelani Woods.
Yeah, that's also a thing.
But
I don't even know what tight end. Like they have 17 of them, but this is part of the deal with the Colts tight end stuff. Like the Shane Steichen offense and like even the Colts pre-rec, like they don't actually use as much 12 personnel on passing plays as people think. I think it's because they have like 5 tight ends. People think that they are constantly passing out of 12. They're not really passing out of 12 that often. They're like usually middle of the pack in pass rate of 12. They use a ton of 12 on run plays. And then they also just have a bunch of tight ends, none of whom ever play half the snaps. So I don't necessarily think we're going to see like top 5 rates of 12 personnel or anything in this offense. I think they're going to pass predominantly out of 11. So yeah, I think Downs is, if you're betting on Richardson to actually be a first-round pick in Dynasty, he needs to also pass. He can't just run. He needs to be at least an average passer. And if he is that, then Downs is going to be in a really high-scoring offense, as a really exciting year 2 bet, has all the skills. I think he's one of the most mispriced players in all formats, but in this case, particularly in a Dynasty format.
Yeah, I agree on this one completely. Just to add even more to the personnel discussion on their, so not during runs, but on their dropbacks, the Colts actually played 11 personnel at the 3rd highest rate last year. So if you say to me, I don't know if Josh Downs can play outside, I would say I'm not even sure it matters, because it seems like he was on the field plenty last year, was pace for pace with Pittman pretty much before he got injured with them both on the field. Yeah, I understand. Like, I don't know if Josh Downs has the upside to be like a top 12 fantasy wide receiver. I don't think I care about that at all at his price in any format right now. It particularly amazing later round best ball wide receiver right now too. So yeah, I'm I'm totally with Jakob on Downs. Sorry, I can't say best ball without laughing now.
I know. I did good. I didn't mention my Downs best ball exposure that whole bit, but it's hot.
I wonder how much of it is because of his production off linebackers that kind of makes people feel wary, right? Like a lot of his production did come off of linebackers last year, but I think that's just a testament to Steichen being a good coordinator. I don't think it's necessarily something we should knock him on. I do fully agree. I have been team trade down from JSN to Downs plus for a year now, and I'm going to continue to do that. I can see a road of very similar production for both of them. So
yeah, and you mentioned the linebacker stuff, right? Like the one thing we do know is every time they pass out of 11, Downs is going to be in the slot 90% of the time. Right? That's happening. So really all the question is like for the other portion of passes, which is Ryan put, is not as high as people actually perceive it to be. Is he playing Z or is it Mitchell or Pierce? And, we'll see about that. But I think it's pretty marginal. And ultimately, I think most of that question gets answered by just how good is Downs. Is he just a pretty nice player, or does he elevate to a level where he's so good that it would just be kind of malpractice to take him off the field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair. Absolutely fair. Just wanted to add a bit of a counter there. Well, let's keep in the AFC South here, Ryan.
All right. So my take here is we're going to the Texans. And my take is that Tank Dell, especially in Dynasty right now, we can keep it as a Dynasty take only. Don't need to mention the other formats. He, as a back end 5th rounder, I think that's about a round too cheap. So we mentioned, I believe we mentioned the the average separation score stuff at the beginning of this episode that we're working on at FantasyPoints right now. Spoiler alert, I guess Tank Dell was the best wide receiver in the league last year by FantasyPoints' new separation metric. And he had a better first downs per route run than Jamar Chase did last year, did all this as a rookie. I also pulled up this other stat just because I was thinking about CJ Stroud thinks that Tank Dell is like a top 3 wide receiver of all time. He would want him on the field. I don't even remember who else he said. Megatron, maybe. Yeah.
I used to think this was a better take until Jordan Love picked Romeo Doubs. Now I can't. Now I can't go with this. Who do you want on the play take?
That's fair. No, I hear you on that one. But anyway, last year with Tank Dell in the lineup, CJ Stroud averaged about 21 fantasy points per game. With him out of the lineup, CJ Stroud averaged like 13 fantasy points per game, guys, which a lot of that was kind of before he fully came on as the CJ Stroud we know. But I think that just speaks to how important CJ Stroud probably feels he is to that offense, as well as he was genuinely very, very efficient as a rookie. He kind of won in every possible way. And for some reason, he's going multiple rounds later than a Nico Collins, who, I don't know. Their ranges of outcomes are fairly similar this year. Like maybe you knocked Dell a little bit because like he's small, plus he got hurt or whatever. But it just doesn't really make sense to me. What is really the difference between like a Tank Dell and like a Devontae Smith right now? Why are we drafting Smith a full round earlier in Dynasty startups?
Well, he won the Heisman.
Doesn't make sense to me. Yeah,
he won the Heisman.
Yeah. So. I mean, this is another one of those, I think, where people are focusing too much on the who's going to play in 2 wide receiver sets question.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of this with Houston, and like, granted, Tom, close your ears. It's easier to hand wave some of that stuff when it's like when you're just talking about best ball, and you don't really need to worry about the consistency of production. But again, like in Dynasty, it's also something you can kind of hand wave a little bit more, where like you're betting on the talent profile. And if the talent profile is what it is, then 1 year of Stephon Diggs, maybe pushing him out of 2 wide receiver sets is like a footnote in your considerations. Totally agree with this. I mean, I just think all of the Texans wide receivers are massive values in every format. You look at how impressive what Stroud was able to do with Noah Brown last year. You look at the fact that they still have so much meat on the bone. Like they were a -2 pass rate over expected team last year. And part of that is because they had these stretches of time where, Nico was out. So it was Dell and a bunch of dudes. Dell's out. It's Nico and a bunch of dudes. I think they even had a couple of games in there where Nico and Dell were both out. And it was
Noah Brown.
Unimaginably bad. It was just Noah Brown, Robert Woods, whoever else. Like, what Diggs gives them now is insurance, where any one of those 3 guys goes out, they can still run a totally functional high-end NFL passing attack. And while they're still there, they can distribute. There's all these, look at like the San Francisco 49ers and, how we're drafting those guys with, in my view, a much lesser quarterback, certainly a team that's going to run the ball, I think, more than we expect Houston to. There's no reason why they can't make 3 guys work here if it's condensed, if it's designed well. I agree. Dell is just a screaming value.
Okay, I'm glad you're with me on all the Texans values, because every podcast I go on nowadays, the question is like, which Texans wide receiver is going to be the most valuable? Like, pick one.
I'm overweight on all of them.
Yeah.
Or
it's become my bit to just pick a different one every time. Like I just talked up Nico Collins on the show I did before this. So it's just all of them.
Like, I agree. No,
like in best ball, my most drafted is actually Diggs, which is kind of crazy. But I'm well overweight all 3.
Yeah, the odd man out is Schultz. I mean, like that's like, let's be realistic. That's what it is. If you're a Schultz truther, it's buckle up, baby. Welcome. You better learn how to speak Brevin Jordan, Dalton Schultz. I just got Tank Dell at 6'3" in this startup I'm doing, and I'm super ecstatic. 6'3" wide receiver 4. Tank Dell is insane. Well, we couldn't do the AFC South if I didn't bring up Trevor Lawrence, right? Like, I just feel like this is just something that I have to do every single time. I'm just
going to mute for the next like 20 minutes.
I was going to make Lawrence my pick, but Tom had already pulled up the show sheet. So
here is my big take on Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has now fallen into the 3rd round, which to me is too low. Trevor Lawrence should be a 2nd round pick. The problem with Trevor Lawrence is that he goes on absolute insanity runs and plays like dog shit the rest of the season. What I mean by this is I'm throwing out rookie year. We know Urban Meyer and that whole situation. He lit it up in the first game of his career and then was like, I'm packing in the rest of the year to save my life. Like, that's what it felt like. Whatever. Get Urban Meyer fired felt like the play there. But in 2022, from weeks 12 through 16 on 152 attempts, He had a 0.63 fantasy points per dropback, a 26.1 fantasy points per game. He was the third best quarterback in fantasy points per game between Allen, Hurts, and Lawrence. That's dope. However, in 2022, he did have the best finish of his career. The rest of the time, Trevor Lawrence was a middling QB2 outside of those games with very limited upside. In 2023, he did it again. Weeks 11 through 14, and these are so super similar. Like, we know what his upside actually is. 11 through 14, okay, on 149 attempts, he had a 0.64 fantasy points per drop back. Sounds pretty close. A 25.8 fantasy points per game. Pretty close. And he was the second best quarterback in fantasy during this stretch, only behind Josh Allen in points per game. We know what his upside case is. To me, his upside screams round 2 quarterback for me. His peak screams round 1. So what's the problem? The problem is everything else surrounding Trevor Lawrence. He has as much volatility as any non-scrambler in the league. Now, receivers drop some touchdown passes. There's some variance. It's like that all over the place. It's just how it is. He has never passed for more than 25 touchdowns in a season. He has had turnover problems in 2 of his 3 years. He is having a rough camp so far. Whatever. A lot of changes, rookie receivers, new receivers, etc. The problem is with Trevor Lawrence, and where my take is, what he would have to do to get back into round 1 consideration, I think is over. I think it is over at this point for round 1 Lawrence. I think that he might be able to get back into mid-round 2 Lawrence, in which case you're going to end up being very happy. The problem is, from everything that we've seen from Lawrence right now, he is about to be, if this season he does it again, if he has a God tier run in him and he underperforms the rest, he is going to be in pylon quarterback purgatory, a la what Jacob would say is Purdy, Goff, Tua. And you can say, Jacob, he's a good quarterback if you hashtag watch the games. He's the elite arm talent, all of this. But if his production is a handful of upper tier games, and his upper tier games are really upper tier, I made that point clear. But his middling tier games still are these low end QB2 at best to middling QB2 with the limited rushing upside. My fear is that you're forever going to have QB purgatory with Trevor Lawrence, wishing that he actually fulfilled his promise as the prince that was promised, a la Jon Snow.
I want to just I'll always push back on everything with Lawrence, but the biggest thing that I think we can just objectively push back on is the classification of him as a pylon. Like, Trevor Lawrence's average rushing yards per season is higher than Herbert's career high and is higher than Burrow's carear high.
Yeah, and they're both pylons.
Those guys have spent the majority of their dynasty life in the round 1 of startups. It's over 200 yards above Tua's career high in rushing yards and Goff's career high in rushing yards. But Burrow, no one's going to mistake Trevor Lawrence for being Anthony Richardson or Kyler Murray. But Burrow and Herbert are somewhere in between. Like, he does add fantasy value on the ground in a way that those guys don't. And you mentioned, of course, this is the big thing with Lawrence is Ben Baldwin did this adjusted EPA numbers for 2023, right? And look, I'm not really an EPA guy. I have a lot of issues with the stat. I think it's a very funny coincidence how every year, no matter who they start in San Francisco
EPA right now.
Sorry?
Said you're a very anti-EPA with Purdy, but we're about to quote EPA.
I was just gonna we're going to EPA.
Well, that's okay. Go ahead. Finish your.
Yeah, well, I'm a little more interested in this adjusted EPA, perhaps. But
okay.
I have
fake stats.
Yeah. Okay, but for the people who like EPA, right? I mean, the people who are anti-EPA already all love Lawrence. I don't need to convince them of anything. Yeah. The people who have murder EPA on their picket sign that they're waving outside of the PFF offices in Cincinnati, like they're with me on this. But to the EPA lovers, and Ben Baldwin is probably EPA lover in chief. He has an adjusted EPA stat that he started last year, which as a formula to even it out, to try and isolate quarterback play from pass protection, and then to isolate from drops, also from dropped interceptions, to have even distribution of interceptions and fumble recoveries on interceptable passes or fumbles, and to minimize the noise of interception returns. So when you do get intercepted, whether it's a touchdown or not. And of all of the top 32 quarterbacks, Lawrence wound up having the largest positive differential. So effectively, by this metric, he was deemed to be the most unlucky of all quarterbacks. He ends up in this stat at plus 0.26 EPA per play and adjusted EPA per play, tied with Josh Allen for third, only behind Dak Prescott and, of course, your boy Brock Purdy. I do think that his year last year, in terms of what he put on tape versus the stats, was just substantially better. And if you take away a little bit of that bad luck, that his progression looks a lot more linear from the horrible rookie year to the start into this really strong finish to his year 2. I also think their offense this year makes a lot more sense. I wish they had dumped Press Taylor. That is an egregious choice to continue his employment. But last year, it felt like a lot of like, we got Calvin Ridley, and we got to call like 10. It's like basketball, right? It's like we just got this new player transferred over to the team, and our offense looks kind of good, but we got to call 15 ISOs a game for this guy so he can go shoot a 20-foot contested 2. And that was what the Ridley looks felt like to me last year. Every Ridley play felt like we have to have a Ridley play and not like it came in the flow of the offense. You know, Gabe Davis, obviously a worse player than him, but I think, you know, you get rid of Zay Jones, who's just, to me, kind of beyond cooked. And you get rid of Ridley, who felt like they were forcing it to. And you now put in Gabe Davis, who has a role. Brian Thomas has a role. The offense, I think, hopefully flows in a more egalitarian way. I'm pretty excited for this. This is the make or break Lawrence year. Like, I felt like last year was the make or break Lamar year, Dak year. This is the make or break Lawrence year. If he can't put it together where they're a winning team and he's leading a top 10 offense and he's a clear QB1 in fantasy, you know, it's time to retire the stump speech. But this is the year for him.
I get it. And that's why I wanted to point him out tonight, because the hope, again, I just don't think he's going to be the round 1 guy ever again, unless he goes out and puts up 5,050. But you're talking about his rushing and what he can bring. Even a guy like Russ still has to put up 31, 35, 34, 40, 34 to hit these peak touchdowns for even a part-time scrambler, if you would. And this is a guy who, you know, hasn't stayed healthy either while running. So that's also part of it. My main point is, to me, this is the year that if you're holding on to him or if you're still buying at his maximum tier price, like you said, this is the make or break type season for him. And regardless of what he puts on tape or what his elite stretches are crazy. And I explicitly remember when Paul Patterson made a post on Twitter. He was like, something about, you know, remember when people said Trevor Lawrence wasn't good. And I just remember quoting and saying, like, I hope we don't wait 3 weeks for the next time you get to say this. Like, that's just what the experience for Trevor Lawrence is superior highs and really low lows. I do see a world where he ends up in that Jared Goff to a quarterback purgatory. Because you mentioned like Herbert and those guys did it while being pylons. Like, they hit that upper level. But it's the same reason I'm still concerned about Stroud in the same way at 103, because you just need that pocket production. This is the make or break year for Lawrence, 100%. I'm pro Lawrence this year, especially in his 3rd round price. I have more of him now than I ever did before. I've been going receiver Kyler Lawrence multiple times this offseason. I've loved it. I think he gets back. My prediction is that he gets back in mid. That's where I'm thinking Kyler. Hold on. I'm thinking Kyler gets back in around 1 this year. I legitimately believe Kyler can be QB1 this season. I legitimately believe this. I think Trevor Lawrence can get back into Kyler's current spot in that mid 2 range. That's what I'm predicting. I'm about 28 touchdowns, 4 or 5 on the ground. I think gets him there. If he doesn't do it though, he's just Tua, Goff, Purdy, Dak purgatory.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing with his price is that this is the first time in his career that he's been priced closer to the Purdy to a Goff group, especially when you just don't look at it linearly and you look at sort of distribution of capital perspective to the Burrow Herbert group, right? So like even if he winds up that's his floor, right? I mean, he just got a massive contract. He's not under any. There's no doubt of, is Trevor Lawrence still an NFL starting quarterback in 3 years? That's a barring some sort of catastrophic injury. So his worst case is being that Purdy, Goff, Tua. Okay, this is a safety QB2 on my team thing, and he's not priced that much farther above it. That if you're a believer in the upside, as I am, I think this is the time to get it on the ground floor. But we'll see. He's definitely one of the players I'm most excited. This is the division I'm most excited to watch this year. Not just because my team plays in it, but legitimately, it's 4 teams whose offense is better than its defense. It's got now, I think all 4 teams want to be fun. They desire to be fun. Jacksonville always plays at a pretty fast pace. They always pass at a reasonable rate. Indy with Steichen is in my opinion, one of the most interesting schematic offenses. Stroud obviously is a captivating player, and the receivers that they have, and even the Titans, who we didn't really talk about on the show. Whether they're good or not, I have no idea. But I think that they're committed to trying now. They're committed to trying around Levis. I think it's be fun to see what he can do. Warm weather, a lot of indoor games. This will be a fun division to watch. Yeah,
can't wait to watch this. Well, talk that division next week. Ryan, anything to add on the Lawrence thing? Or are we good to go?
No, I think we're good to go. Yeah, all I was doing was comparing Pat Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence's rushing stats last year while you guys were taking control of the argument, as you should. Trevor Lawrence, 5 fewer rush attempts than Pat Mahomes last year. Mahomes had 0 rushing touchdowns. I actually didn't know that. So that kind of random, but probably not going to happen again. Probably
he was still only
more rushing production for Mahomes this year.
And Mahomes was still only QB8, so that's the level Lawrence even has to get to. That's what I mean without the rushing. I mean, it is really grim. It just is what it is. It's real grim, Karen. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we got the NFC South. Super stoked for this, and then we're going to do 5 for 5, and we're going to get out of here before 2 hours. Sit tight. I mean, I got to keep promising people these less than 2 hours, even though, again, the poll did say 3.
I mean, we'll be 2 hours, but the whole we're going to be out of here in an hour 10 was a lie, and you knew it was a lie.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I've tried to go off of your time frame that you texted me, and we went over that in the news portion.
And that was a lie, and I knew it was a lie.
Yeah, that's why I warned Alex when he's like, "You guys need to do a quick news set. Quick, you can't do quick in this pod. That's a word that you got to get out of your vocabulary. All right, we're not hashtag Minutemen here on this pod. I said what I said. All right, Jacob, NFC South. Let's hear what you got.
Yeah, this one is, in my opinion, I think the most underpriced passing game in all formats, but especially in Dynasty format. Even compared to some of those other more kind of pin the wheel on the wide receiver scattershot bets that I'm making in the format that won't be named. Here, I think it's very clear who you're betting on, which makes it more Dynasty friendly. And neither of them are priced up. And it's about the Carolina Panthers. Right now, we have Diontae Johnson going at wide receiver 48 off the board. And then we have first round pick, Xavier Legette, going weirdly ahead of him, but at wide receiver 45 off the board. And behind, guys like Pearsall, behind plenty of other running backs, and has generally been gettable in the mid to late second in rookie drafts. Really, really cheap in seasonal formats. Bryce Young, of course, is, I think, the main reason why people are out on this. I'm not necessarily super into Bryce Young, and Tom's going to talk more about him, so I won't get super into that as an individual, mostly because of the rushing component. But just from an NFL, can this guy play, and can he support fantasy wide receivers standpoint? Drew, the Dynasty Bean Counter, has done a lot of work on building post year 1 models versus rookie models. And quarterback was the rare position in which the prospect profile actually had more signal to year 2 and beyond than the year 1 production did, which was very much not the case at wide receiver, very much not the case at running back. But for some of these very highly drafted quarterbacks that are not very good in year 1, they actually have a pretty, not just highly drafted, but highly drafted and with, in his model, the bulletproof prospect profile. And so, in however you want to phrase that, a strong production profile coming out of college. and high draft capital, even off of a bad year one, tend to still be pretty successful at a high rate. You think of a guy like Tua Tagovailoa. You think of Trevor Lawrence, who we just talked about, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford. It's not that uncommon for these guys to completely dud out year one and recover. I think that it's reasonable that Bryce Young could do that, especially given the really poor environment that he was in last year. They spent way too much on a bunch of offensive linemen, but I'm not here to manage the Carolina Panthers cap situation. I'm here to be hopeful that Bryce Young has a little bit more time to throw to his wide receivers. Diontae Johnson last year, people think about the Adam Thielen sort of inferior goods role from last year where he was this dominant presence, at least over the first half of the season. He had a 21.5% targets per route run last year. Diontae Johnson, every single year of his career, except for his rookie year, has had a higher targets per route run than Adam Thielen had last year. So that's coming in as a little bit above a floor of already viable production that Thielen showed you could have in the worst version of this offense. Then you bring in Legette, who is the first-round wide receiver that everybody has already agreed completely sucks. And I'm just not that sure. If we're talking about a guy who's extremely athletic, 24% targets per route run, 3.15 yards per route run in the SEC, okay? I get it. Too late. He produced too late. I understand that. But that's like kind of the only thing wrong with the profile. It's a big thing, but that's sort of the one glaring issue. But he has fantastic competition, right? Has fantastic production, fantastic athleticism. This isn't some, like, people kind of treat him as though he's either this guy who literally never produced, like a Kadarius Toney or Henry Ruggs, or like he's some random dude from a directional Illinois school. Like, none of those things are the case. He's not that unconventional prospect to be dinged this hard as a first-round player with an easy path to routes. So I'm really excited about Legette. I'm excited about Johnson. I think he can work with Bryce Young. And then you bring in Dave Canales, who, look, maybe this is like saying hit me on 18 after you've just gotten 2 2s. But like 2 straight years, this guy has been on the offense that everyone in the fantasy community has completely left for dead and then resuscitated them. Now he comes into kind of that same situation in Carolina. I don't know if he's a complete miracle worker or not, but I'm pretty sure at the very least he's competent. He's a guy who's going to know how to put players into the situations that they need to be to succeed. I'm pretty excited about this offense being not good, but viable. And I think that if it is, we're running through a guy in Legette, who's, of course, super young and has a ton of upside to his price, and Johnson, who's a guy that, if you told me this is like the 20th best passing offense in the league, I would say I think Diontae Johnson's a top 20 wide receiver when he's healthy this year, and you're getting a massive discount on his price.
Right. Well, I'll just roll this into the points that I want to make here. I agree that the weapons might be underpriced. I mean, I just saw Diontae Johnson go off the board in the 9th round in the startup I mentioned earlier. Like, they're still going just insanely cheap, right?
ADP's in the late 10th right now.
Yeah, so pretty insane. And I do want to talk about Bryce Young. Now, his price has continued to drop. Bryce Young is now a 7th round pick, QB 20 in ADP. Here's my problem with Bryce Young. It is possible in this world that he stinks again. Okay, it's possible. He's already QB 20. Next year, the quarterback class is not expected to be great. What does that mean? Not a whole lot, because some team is still going to overdraft a quarterback and they're still going to go too high in super flex startups, even if they're bad. Unless you're Kenny Pickett bad, it does happen. Right after Bryce Young, you get Baker, Watson, Levis, Nix, all those guys next year, if Bryce Young stinks, could jump him in ADP. You mentioned Tua. Tua does have a cult following. That is just what it is, because Tua, over his first 2 years, QB 31, QB 26, he was QB 15, and he finally hit QB 9 and still somehow found a way to lose value. Don't know how that worked. But you're right. But even Baker Mayfield, right, was QB 10 last year, had unbelievably God mode Mike Evans doing a lot of that heavy lifting. And outside of that, he's just not been that great, like you mentioned. Bryce Young was QB 23 on a truly horrendous team with only 11 touchdowns. We get it. We know the year. There is just a world to me where you'd never recoup your value again on Bryce Young. I just watched somebody trade future draft capital in this startup to move up to get Bryce Young in the 6th round. To me, that is a surefire way to hedge your bet on a higher likelihood of him losing value than him gaining enough value for that trade to work out for you. To me, he is a dangerous pick in a startup draft anywhere near not anywhere near, but in the 6th round. If you're getting him in that 7th round, sure, you want to ride. He's just as likely to fail as somebody like Billy Jeans, in my opinion. There's just as high of an opportunity to fail. I don't know if the high end is even there for him because we haven't seen it. Maybe this is just me being I haven't seen it guy yet. But let's talk about what he would actually need to hit to really provide you that value gain necessary for Bryce Young to just pay off, period. Because if we use Tua as the guide, this is a guy that, 20 points per game is like we're praying a lot of the time, and he's still dumped on. So what it would actually take for Bryce Young to get out of quarterback purgatory from the 4th, 5th, and 6th round? A hell of a lot. 24 points per game, 23, something insane. It would take multiple years for people to trust. I don't know if it ever does. I just think it would take an obscene amount of unreal production year over year for him to get out of quarterback purgatory. I'm comfortable saying that Bryce Young will be stuck in quarterback purgatory forever. And to me, he is the highest end of a quarterback tier that I want the bottom end of in the Matthew Staffords and the old guys for similar or better production moving forward. For me, Bryce Young is just quarterback purgatory bound that I want less and less of, just in my opinion. But I don't mind you saying that the weapons can definitely be undervalued at the same time as knowing a quarterback is likely stuck in purgatory, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of split the difference between you guys. So where I completely agree with Jakob is absolutely everything he said about Diontae Johnson. I can even sort of get there with Legette, sure. Diontae Johnson averaged the most yards per catchable target between 10 and 19 yards downfield last year, but saw the lowest catchable target rate of any wide receiver in those intermediate areas. And Bryce Young was able to deliver the ball to Adam Thielen in those exact same areas of the field with pretty much no issues at like a league average rate. So yeah, even if Bryce Young doesn't take like the Dave Canales step forward, I still think Diontae Johnson is a mega value, and is currently one of my highest rostered players in all formats. As for Young himself, when it comes to Canales, just to like read off some numbers and give some context, we at Fantasy Points, we like to use this adjusted net yards per attempt stat. It's basically yards per attempt, but penalizes like sacks and interceptions. This is what Dave Canales has done for his QBs the last couple of years. Geno Smith in his career before Canales averaged 4.65 adjusted net yards per attempt. 2022 with Canales, that bumped up to 6.54. Basically a 50% increase in his efficiency, right? Same thing with Baker Mayfield. The year before, 4.8 adjusted net yards per attempt. With Canales last year, 6.47. So Bryce Young was down at 3.68 last year. A 50% bump easily gets him into starting level quarterback, one of the top 25 quarterbacks in the league, clear starting level play. That is all you need out of Bryce Young for his receivers to get there at their prices this year. And that's amazing. As for Young himself, I would just challenge Thomas. Yes, I understand that there's kind of a stink around Bryce Young right now. It's hard to like imagine the scenario where he gains dynasty value, but I would point you to Bryce Young before Bryce Young, who had the biggest disaster of a rookie season ever, which was Jared Goff himself, right? This was possibly the worst. Goff went first overall, right? One of the worst rookie seasons we've seen from a first overall pick, like in the modern day. Goff completely bounces back in year 2. has a bit of a bumpy ride. Years later, gets traded to the Lions, has a team kind of built around him. And oh, look, Jared Goff is 8 years older than Bryce Young and is currently a 4th round startup pick. Now, I don't agree with that startup ADP, but Jared Goff has also never really provided that high end of week to week fantasy production, right? This is not a player anyone looks at and is like, oh yeah, he totally has like a top 5 fantasy quarterback type of ceiling. But 0 people who are drafting Jared Goff in the 4th round of startups are thinking that. And I just think it could very easily get there with Bryce Young. Yeah, I mean, you can say, okay, he's in like the Purdy Tua like purgatory or whatever with Goff, but that's still a value gain. His ADP right now is,
I get that.
I think 7th round. I think that's totally fine. And that I think that's where he is if he has even like a moderate success of a year this year. Like this was a highly touted prospect. People make jokes about him being short now, but that's kind of all there is in terms of the vibe shift. I don't think it's like this completely irreparable damage that Bryce Young has done to his brand. Like look at what Trevor Lawrence did to his brand after year 1. And now he has risen much higher than that again without sustaining anywhere near top end production as you just laid out for more than a few games. So yeah, I'll let you have the floor.
So here's my point. I'm not saying that he can't gain value, but gain value to what? Listen to how people talk about regularly on this program about that quarterback purgatory and what the value is. I would trade out for the older guy plus. I would trade for a receiver and a lower end Geno Smith plus. Give me whoever's cheaper, right? That's what these quarterbacks are to people. If that's his high end, man, and yeah, if Bryce Young maybe finds his career path 7 years later, he's going to be an absolute steal. But let's not pretend that Jared Goff also didn't have, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods in a McVay offense when he broke out, and then now has Ben Johnson, and it's just an absurd offense. And then let's not forget that Baker in Tampa had one of the GOATs, future Hall of Famer, whether Scott Barrett wants to admit it or not, Mike Evans. He had Chris Godwin. And then in Seattle, Canales was working with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and other good offensive weapons already. This is not what we can say for Carolina. So it is easy to say he did it here and he did it here, but it's really not an apples to apples situation in Carolina. And again, if his ultimate upside is, well, just give me whoever's cheaper, then if you're trading future firsts and things like that for Bryce Young now, give me whoever's cheaper. And to me, that's just what Bryce Young's outlook looks like to me, is give me whoever's cheaper.
I agree with Tom for the most part on the Bryce Young point, where if I want to bet on the Bryce Young bounce back, I would rather just do it through his weapons, and that goes for all formats. And that reason being just, I do think that there is a glass ceiling to how much you can accrue in value if you don't run at all. And he really doesn't run at all. The guys that we're talking about him getting to, right? I mean, we're talking about bounce backs from a bad year as a quarterback, but I'm willing to take the like Herbert, Burrow, Stroud upside mostly off the table at this point. I mean, maybe not, maybe that's a little bit unfair, but that should be like a 99th percentile outcome at this point. Where that 70th, 80th percentile outcome is, that is like the Tua, the Goff. That is getting into that round 4 of startups, late round 3 of startups area. And I agree with Tom too, that like, if that's what Bryce becomes, I'm going to want to trade him then. So would I be happy investing now, getting a little bit of profit, trying to cash out on that profit later? Sure. I kind of did that with Tua. I bought a lot of Tua after year 1 and year 2, believe it or not, and then have sold most of that since, but I still have like a couple Tuas sitting around that I haven't even ever been able to sell, where I'm in leagues that aren't a big fan of his. How much do I want to try and take a speculative bet on I'm going to sell later, when it's one thing to move up 3 rounds from the 5th to the 2nd. It's another thing to move up 3 rounds from the 7th to the 4th. That's probably, we're talking like a mid-second in value difference, an early second in value difference between those slots. And the opportunity cost is not just the risk. It's the opportunity cost of quarterback is huge. if you're taking Bryce Young where he goes and he busts, you're in potentially a really terrible spot to be in Superflex where you're left without a musical chair, at the quarterback position, and you have to go and acquire a quarterback now without giving up one, which is very challenging. And also, unlike if you take a swing on a young wide receiver in round 7, right? Let's say you take I don't think Brian Thomas maybe goes higher, but whoever, using Keon Coleman maybe. Let's say you draft Keon Coleman in the 7th round. Keon Coleman goes full QJ. You burnt the pick. He's dust. Like, that sucks. You wasted a 7th round pick, but it's pretty manageable in the sense of there's a lot of other wide receivers and running backs. Pull up off your bench to sub into that spot, make it work. With Young, not only do you have that value loss of that 7th round slot, but like, that's your QB2. You're starting him. Like, think of like Zach Wilson, right? It was one thing to have the pain of losing the value of Zach Wilson if you took him coming off his rookie year. The other problem was you had to eat starting like 12 points per game every week in one of your quarterback spots, which is extremely debilitating to your ability to win fantasy football games this year. So that's to me the scariest part of Bryce Young is like, if he sucks, not only is it a value loss, but like that's super rough for your football team. If you're taking Bryce Young and he's scoring like, if he's what he was last year, he's scoring like 6 points worse than Matthew Stafford is going to score, Geno Smith is going to score, right? It's not like if you take a flyer on Legette and he busts, it's really not that big of a deal. It's a massive deal if Bryce Young is your QB2 and he's just unplayable for you. So right. I don't think that the risk is quite worth the reward on him in particular. And yet I am still kind of optimistic on him having that bounce back year. I just think more efficient ways to do it that don't involve clicking his name.
Yeah, and
no, I to be clear, I actually agree with you guys. I'm devil's advocating against Thomas's take, but yeah, I would much rather bet on like even like just get a little bit cheaper, get like the Will Levis or like the Bo Nix if you're trying to play in like I want to bet on the value accrual of a quarterback, or more likely if I want to win games this year. Then get me down to the Kirk Cousins, to the Matt Stafford.
Well, those guys
I would always rather
where you can get one of those guys and a Cousins or a Stafford versus like, if you're taking Young in the 7th, like, do you want to come back and take another quarterback in the 10th? Because like now you've allocated a lot of draft picks to quarterbacks, which is.
I will say that if you're a savvy trader, right, and like Jacob mentioned, a player moving from the 7th round to like the 4th round. There's opportunity there if you're a savvy and active trader in your leagues and you know your leagues and you can turn that value into, let's say, whoever the hot 4th round wide receiver is, like Brandon Ayuk, Rome Odunze, or Nico Collins is, and just move off of them. If you are that guy, fantastic. Then buy in on Bryce and pray for that upside. But again, I have a hard time seeing it for any of these guys. I'm just going back and listening to how I constantly hear these guys talked about and how they're played down constantly. And then now Bryce Young's best case expectation is give me who's cheaper. So that's just where I have to come from on it. And I hope he does well because I have a lot of Carolina receivers and I have a lot of Jonathan Brooks and I need this offense to do well. But that's where we separate hope to like actually looking at what the realistic range of outcomes is for his future expectations.
Brian Ford in the chat, by the way. I mean, I would JJ McCarthy like millions of miles ahead of Bryce Young.
Agreed.
I prefer McCarthy even to Tua and Purdy, so I certainly prefer him to Bryce Young. Addison and Bryce. I don't really care about Jordan Addison like at all. So probably neither on that one.
But I would take Bryce there
because definitely Pickens, and then probably take Bryce over Watson.
Yeah. I would take Bryce over Addison because Bryce is cheaper, and because take who's cheaper. That's who I.
Well, if he's asking me straight up, then I'll take Addison. If you're telling me he's more expensive, if I could get a third more, I don't want to roster either of those players in Dynasty.
Me either. No, I definitely do not want to roster Jordan Addison either.
I don't get the JJM hate from you in particular, Brian. I get it if you don't like him as a prospect. I was kind of neutral on him as a prospect. Like there's some big time JJM haters. I'm not one of them. I'm also not in the Brett Whitefield JJM QB1 group. But like
few are.
But now that he's in Minnesota, right, if you're Brian Ford, right, and I'm pretty sure, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure kind of with me, Brian, for the most part on like the anti-Purdy real life takes and some of these other McShanny quarterbacks. Like if that's your, I don't think you are neutral, Brian. If you have Bryce out of him, I think you think he sucks ass. I think if you're kind of out on if you're saying like, oh, I don't think Purdy's all that good in real life. Like if you're that guy who's like, I think Goff's a little overrated, I think Tua's low, then to me that tells me you should be in on JJ McCarthy in Dynasty, right? Like if you're looking at those spots and you're saying the situation is making some of these quarterbacks, then bet on the situation.
Right. Yeah, I agree. He says maybe I'm not neutral on Bryce. That's definitely possible as well. 100%. Ryan, your quick, well, not quick. You can take as much time as you want, but your take on the NFC South.
Yeah, this one will probably be quick because I think I'm more like just asking questions than I am giving a take here. I'm just asking questions. Maybe a little bit inspired by the Tyler Allgeier discourse from today, where Zack Robinson is saying like gives like, if we're being real, gives like the boilerplate answer of like, I'm not Dennis Allen, so I'm gonna say a nice thing about the player on my team that I'm getting asked about and say, oh, you never know what happens. Like he could, football's a crazy game. Like he could get a lot more touches some games than you might know, right? And Twitter gets really upset. But that got me thinking just about Tyler Allgeier's Dynasty ADP. He's the RB50 right now on Dynasty Data Lab. How is this in any way a different bet than Zach Charbonnet, for example, RB37, or I would even argue than like a Blake Corum as RB30? Like these are day 2 running backs that are behind what we think are pretty entrenched starters. I don't know that I have like a super strong talent take between the 3 of them. Maybe I lean Corum as the best player of those 3, but it shouldn't be that strong. And I mean, Allgeier has some interesting indicators, right? So he had the 3rd best success rate on man gap runs last year. That was behind only Kyron Williams and Aaron Jones. Notably, the Rams last year kind of shifted from a more zone heavy scheme to more of those like man gap runs. And they ran the 3rd most of any team last year. Will Zack Robinson do the same? We don't necessarily know. I did like about 5 minutes of research before the show and couldn't find anything definitive really on how he actually plans to structure the run game. But there's a world here where Allgeier actually carves out kind of like a Zach Charbonnet or a Blake Corum type of role that people currently think those other 2 guys are locked into. And yeah, obviously what really matters for all of them is the contingent value in any format. So why is Allgeier so far below these guys just in terms of ADP? I'm just asking the question.
I think it's just because he's behind Bijan.
Bijan Robinson is not going to be giving up work.
But look, we want to talk about valuable handcuffs. This is it. He's got to be one of the top ones if you're a guy that doesn't like to handcuff your own running back, right? If you're preying on Bijan's downfall, then Allgeier is kind of one of the guys I want in this offense. He's a proven runner. He's a good football player, regardless if we have cursed his name for 2 years now, but very successful rookie year. And I think like Ray Davis is okay, good, but like Dobbins, Chuba, even Vidal, I mean, going ahead of him, some other questionable players like Ryan had laid out. I'm inclined to agree that if you're looking for like the high value handcuff, he is so ridiculously dirt cheap. We should be buying.
Yeah, I mean
that's not.
I think he's one of the best handcuffs. I think he's one of the best handcuffs in fantasy.
Yeah,
and I think he's a reasonable enough player that he could have value in a second contract somewhere. I'm selling the Tyler Allgeier standalone value stuff that I'm selling the shit out of that. Yeah, like I saw a hype nugget about him online today. People are worried about, does this change how we view Bijan? Is he going to get 10? I do not think so. I think
No.
Bijan is like a very clear-cut top 3 running back talent in this league. You're getting the stat. I mean, that's the argument for Kyren, right? Is people always say, oh, the Rams, they use one back. That's the staff coming over to coach this offense in Atlanta. I'm pretty I'm happy to be in on Allgeier as a cuff. I don't think Bijan's coming off the field very frequently this year. I think the madness is ending with Arthur Smith. But the bright side is, like, can anyone name the Atlanta RB3? I actually can't. I don't know.
No, I honestly don't know.
Oh, no, I can't. Wow. That's a good one. I should know that by July 30th.
I'm gonna look this up. We're gonna break news live on the show. Atlanta Falcons running back depth chart. Like I really don't even have a clue.
Just with everybody saying,
Jace McClellan. Jace McClellan is the RB3.
Oh, the rookie. Okay.
So, right. So this is a spot where like Bijan goes down. There's nothing stopping Tyler Allgeier for like 87% snap rate in very good offense, right? You could argue his contingent value is basically right up there with Corum for best in the whole league.
Yeah, and that's kind of my biggest point is maybe just because I don't care that much about quote unquote like the standalone value when it comes to these guys. I never am I clicking Blake Corum's name or Zach Charbonnet's name, being like, oh, good thing at least they're gonna average like 7 fantasy points per game on my bench or whatever until the starter gets hurt or something happens, right? Like I'm not really thinking about the outcomes like between now and them being plugged in as a free square every week, right? Like, so I just don't care as much about that stuff. So yeah, I'm just gonna, if I'm picking through handcuffs or whatever, which as I was starting to say, that's not like an archetype I am generally targeting on my dynasty teams, but I guess it can make sense in certain situations. Then yeah, Allgeier is one I'd rather like have kind of chilling on my bench, and maybe he turns into a lottery ticket that I can sell for a 2nd round pick or whatever in October.
Yeah, I mean, if I really hope this isn't happening because I'm so excited to watch him this year. But Bijan Robinson torn ACL in training camp. Tyler Allgeier is like immediately sellable for 2 and 3, right? And a first in your dumbest league.
Yeah, and more likely more valuable playing on your roster than that second will be, right? Yeah. Like you're putting him in the lineup every week.
Yeah,
every week.
Where would you draft? I mean, I'll put it this way. And Tom, this actually has instructive value for dynasty, so you're gonna have to chill on this one.
I agree.
Where would you, if Bijan Robinson went down today? You knew he was gone for the whole season. Where would you draft Tyler Allgeier in a seasonal format? Like, I think he probably ends up kind of like similar. Yeah, like I think he goes like behind like Etienne and Pacheco, but like kind of like ahead of Cook and White, like that kind of realm.
5th round, yeah.
Pacheco was the comparison I was going to make. Yeah,
completely agree. And if that's the case for an actual backup, this isn't a Ty Chandler situation where if Jones went down, like we're not putting him there. This is a legit.
We know we can handle the role. We've seen it over at least a half a season. And we know we can be reasonably efficient, and we know they don't got anybody else. So,
yeah, no, I completely agree. Phenomenal. I love this. I can't wait for next week. So I'm already excited. I don't know what one we're doing next week, but I'm sure we'll figure that out as we carry on over the next 4 weeks, getting ready to lead off for kickoff. We are going to explain the in-season game and kind of lay out. This is our first full season here at Fantasy Points as the Dynasty Lead show here. Don't go anywhere. 5 for 5 is coming up after the break. The hottest game in Dynasty Fantasy Football. We're back right after this. Where it is, Ryan Heath has a chance this week. Okay, Jacob, 5 for 5. Let's have a hell of a ride out here.
Yeah, man, let's do it. All right, so this week, all of them are active players. However, all of them have ADPs currently outside the top 200 in Dynasty.
Okay. He did so before the show. Jacob says, "Don't worry, guys. This is going to be like the easiest."
No, this is going to be the easiest
in
5
show
for 5
history.
I promise you, this will be the highest scoring 5 for 5 in show history. And I'm going to say that's for two reasons. One is that they're all active players. Two is that I kind of forgot that I was supposed to prepare one until pretty close to the show, so I didn't do all that many crazy clues. so that's probably maybe the second reason is bigger than the first reason. All right, if anybody does not know how we play this game, the way that we play this game is there's 5 players. Each player has up to 5 clues. If Tom or Ryan gets it on the first clue, they get 5 points. Second clue, 4 points, etc., until the last clue is worth 1 point.
Or Jakob changes the rules.
That rule remains consistent. What is inconsistent is that the last player, whether I keep the points the same, doubled, tripled, is entirely dependent on their scoring. So that'll let you know later. If you want to play along in the chat, please do play along in the chat, but do not cheat. In this case, especially, do not be looking at an ADP source because we'll probably be using the ADP as part of the clues. And I've already said they're all outside the top 200. So everyone shut down your ADP source, shut down your Google, and feel free to play along. All right, let's roll.
Hold on. I got to shut it down.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just closed out a data lab. Yep. All right.
Okay. Everybody close out a data lab. There we go.
I have Twitter, everything closed down. Let's go.
All right. First player.
Chat on screen. You guys are going to guide me.
Okay. This player was a 5th round draft selection out of Auburn University. And for those remembering at home, the rule is you can always guess every round. If you choose to forego a guess in a round and the other player does guess, you guaranteed getting the first guess in the next round.
A 5th round pick out of Auburn. I don't know if he went to Auburn, but I'll say Greg Dulcich.
That is incorrect.
Okay,
I just round pick out of UCLA.
I was just taking a random shot because if somebody were going to prop up somebody at random on the first one, to me it was Greg Dulcich.
Yeah.
I don't know if this counts as
that I could ring that one off instantly. By the way, so
I don't know if he counts as an active player. But my brain is thinking like Wayne Gallman. He might have been an earlier pick though.
4th round pick out of Clemson. All right, next round.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This player ran a 4.39 40-yard dash.
A 4.39 40.
Okay.
Fast boy. Fast boy. I'll take the low hanging fruit. I'll take Anthony Schwartz.
Incorrect, but
Ryan, you let me down.
Guess. Right school, was fast. 3rd round pick.
Oh right, okay. 5th
Damn,
round.
he was a 3rd round pick. Hey, oh my God.
Wow.
Cleveland. What are we doing?
All right. Free guess here, or do you want to go first next round?
I'll go first next round.
All right. 3rd clue. This player has led his NFL team in both yards and yards per route run in 2 consecutive seasons.
Oh wow. Okay.
Damn.
Out of a 5th round pick too. Wow. Okay.
Dude, I don't know.
That's hard.
No, he said
there can't be that many players outside.
I know, but my
2
brain
straight
is like
seasons leading their team in yards.
My brain is like being twisted.
Brother, I don't know.
So many directions.
It's the Auburn thing that's messing with me.
Yeah, same. I should just forget that. Honestly,
you can forget about Auburn if you want to. All right, I'm giving you 5 seconds, Ryan, on your free guess. Then I'm opening it up to anybody. 5, 4, 3.
DJ Chark. I don't know.
Incorrect. TJ Chark, 2nd round pick out of LSU.
Okay. I'll take Sean Darius Slayton.
That is correct.
Oh,
3 points.
Damn.
I'm trusting the chat tonight. Okay. I'm not ashamed about it. I need to get back.
Right. My usual ruling is I deduct 1 from the contestant and award that to the chat. So I'm going to give Tom 2. I'm going to give the chat 1.
I'll take
Ryan 0.
I'll take it.
All right. This next player was a first-round pick in the 2014 NFL Draft?
Sammy Watkins.
Incorrect.
Odell Beckham Jr.
That's correct. 5 points.
What? I've known Jakob for so long. I was like, there's only one way he's fitting OBJ in here.
I thought OBJ seemed too obvious. I don't know. I'm
no,
like, okay,
you don't understand. Jakob for Odell Beckham goes no bounds.
Could have gone with it. Shout out to OBJ. Yeah,
that
was
after this. I'm curious.
Did you not?
Next one was the next one was he had his best yards per route run in the 2023 season in 5 years. Won the Paul Hornung Award his junior year. Current ADP of 261 and is on his 5th NFL team. Or the other 4 clues.
I probably would have had a harder time if you would have started with any other one.
Yeah, I'd have gotten confused at that second clue, honestly.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that was the best shot I had. Let's fucking go. We're in it right now.
All right. Okay. This player was the starting quarterback at a college football playoff game.
Oh, that's a good one.
ADP over 200.
That doesn't necessarily mean they have to be good.
Yeah, I know.
Well, he's an active player with an ADP above 200. None of these guys are currently good. The degree of whether they were good
Bennett?
changes. Sorry?
Is it Sam Bennett?
That's incorrect.
I thought he started for Georgia.
Oh, if you're going with, for the record, the name is Stetson Bennett, but it's also not Stetson Bennett.
There we go.
That's
how much he matters.
There we go.
Come on, that's got to be a half decent guess, though.
That is
my brain went to Dwayne Haskins, but definitely not an active player.
Oh God!
Yeah,
we're already down 7. I was deduct a point for being rude.
I had that realization like halfway through being about to say it. I was like, oh man, rip. That
really got dark.
Yeah. Sorry.
And anyway. Yes, Toronto Dave and Bennett does play for the Florida Panthers.
That was really
I'll take first guess next round.
All right. Yeah, you should sit there and think about what you did.
Yeah, think about it's one of those things where I'm like, I feel like I need to share this thought, but I know as soon as I do, it's just like awful. So yeah, I don't know.
This player led the NFL in 2023 in lost fumbles.
Oh wow.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, he led the NFL last season in lost fumbles.
I was good. Is Justin Fields below a 200 Dynasty ADP? That's my guess.
Incorrect.
Okay.
He led the league in lost fumbles. Interesting. And he started a playoff game.
Oh, I think I just got it.
I'll tell him the pressure's on.
I can't guess though. Yep.
Is it? Oh man, that's tough. That is tough. Led the league in lost fumbles. It's not going to be Sam Darnold, is it?
It's not Sam Darnold.
Okay.
Okay. Despite being noted for poor play, he has a shockingly reasonable 8-9 career record as a starting quarterback.
Mac Jones.
Incorrect.
You were so confident.
I was confident that I don't know what Mac Jones' career record is. Probably more starts than that, though.
8-9 record as a starting quarterback in the NFL.
I just was trying to get it out as quick as possible. I didn't even really think about it.
Damn, a career starting record. This isn't Kenny Pickett, is it? Oh no, did we lose Jakob?
Oh, no.
I'm not going to get an answer. I'm not going to get an answer.
Wow.
Is that what's happened? Did I get it so right that I don't get an answer now?
Has Kenny Pickett won 8 games? Actually, well, it's the Steelers.
It's
so
Pittsburgh.
maybe. Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Is that not enough games?
Yeah. Did he
There's
start?
no way Desmond Ritter's underneath outside of the top 200.
Did he start in a college football playoff?
Ritter?
I don't know.
Cincinnati? I don't know. It's got to be Pickett. It's got to. I'm going to say it's Pickett and call it a day.
My next guess. Oh, okay. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, we got to wait.
Hold on, folks.
I need a fucking answer.
I won't say my next guess yet.
Can everyone, can you please hit subscribe and leave a comment so Jacob can finally afford a laptop that doesn't fucking die at the end of a show? Please. That
was a Jacob Sanderson hard out. His battery literally died.
Hello.
Yeah. Every time we hit subscribe so we can get this man a new outlet and a new USB port.
Sorry, my computer shit the bed there for a second. Yeah, you need a guess yet?
Yeah, I said Kenny Pickett as you were dying.
Okay, Kenny Pickett is incorrect. So we'll go to the 2-point rounds. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay.
All that suspense for nothing.
This player made his first career start versus the New Orleans Saints.
Gardner Minshew.
Incorrect.
No, he's got to be inside the top 200. 8-9 as a starter is what's throwing me off in his career. Like outside of the top 200. It's throwing me off, man. There can't even be that many. 8-9? Is it like somehow it's not Mac Jones? I'll just say it. I'll say Desmond Ritter.
That's correct.
There we
Desmond
go.
Ritter,
he's 8-9.
Yes.
Wow. That was what stopped me from saying Ritter. Is I thought there was no way.
It was I honestly thought Ritter was being drafted inside the top 200. I don't know why in my brain he was still being drafted inside the top 200.
All right. I mean, like if you're guessing Odell Beckham based on players that are very much of my brand, I know. Very weird not to guess Desmond Ritter.
I should know.
All right. Tom gets 9 points for that one.
Yeah,
so shout out Tom. I really thought Ryan was so confident on the lost fumbles.
I was. Yeah, I thought I had that like 3 separate times.
8-9 is Mac Jones is a couple of years in the league. He can't be, and he sucks ass. There's no way he's 8-9.
And shout out, by the way, to the Desmond Ritter, Alec Pierce, Cincinnati Bearcats Cinderella team that made one college football playoff appearance. Okay,
that's why I thought maybe Darnold but he didn't play enough to fumble that much.
All right. This player was born in Japan and moved to Hawaii for the majority of his childhood.
Oh, that's got to be super specific. How many players are there like that?
Hawaiian player.
Moved to Hawaii. Moved to
Hawaii, born in Japan.
Oh, born in Japan, moved to Hawaii. Oh, man. Okay. How many Japanese-born players are there in the NFL, you wonder?
Not a lot.
No.
Was he like born on a military base or something?
I don't know. I get the stuff from Wikipedia. Like,
okay, born in Japan. There cannot be that many. Active player. That has to be like a now here's the guy type information we get at the start of games.
Yeah.
But it's lost on me. I'll go next round.
All right.
Yeah, well,
sounds
same.
good. Okay, this player did little last year, but scored 2 touchdowns in Week 18.
I should have listened to Jake Trivy talk about Week 18 DFS more.
Is it? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh God, it's killing me now. It's actively killing me. 2 touch. It's not Michael Wilson, is it?
It's not Michael Wilson, but he did have some 2 touchdowns. He did have a 2 touchdown game.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, is this somebody that could have like?
You got a guess, Ryan, or do you want first next round?
I'll take first next round.
Are you
all right? Okay. Let me just phrase this the way that I want to phrase this.
Well, you wrote it.
No, I just wrote bullet points and I didn't actually write out the script. So, okay. His name sounds like he might hang out on a famed animated island, possibly with his friend Birdo.
What?
Jesus.
With his friend Birdo?
Yeah.
I don't even want to say anything because I don't know if I'm giving Tom hints. But
Brother, I have no idea. No idea. No idea. Jelani Woods.
Incorrect.
All right. I was
is
just
it
Jacob favorite.
Okay, I was going one direction and I'm going a different direction. Is it Andre Yoshivas?
It is Andre Yoshivas
Hey!
for 3 points. There we go.
Okay.
Player whose name I have to learn to pronounce now because he's
yeah, I thought his name was Andre Iosivas.
I also thought that until like this week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair. All right. I was just throwing out another Jacob favorite.
All right. Good call. Herms is killing the game. All right. So this brings us to 9-3. Herms has 2 points. So we're gonna do. Let's see here. What do I need to do to the points here? How can I? All right. Triple points this week. It's gonna be triple points this week.
Who could have?
So Ryan can tie here. If he gets it on the 4th, he can win if he gets it on the 3rd. Tom, of course, wins if he gets it at any point. Okay. This player has a current ADP of 234, a steep fall from each previous year in the NFL.
That's really low, bro. A steep fall, which means he was getting drafted high.
Zack.
I'll rephrase this question, make it even a little bit more specific.
There are 2 players.
Okay, this player is currently being drafted outside the top 200, and it's also his first year being drafted outside the top 100.
Oh,
Treylon Burks.
Wow, 5 points.
Oh my God!
That was sick.
Wow.
Treylon, when he said steep fall, I was thinking there's only one player that used to go where people were still fighting in that 6th, 7th round area last year, and it was Treylon Burks. Everyone else was already out of it.
Wow. All right. That was banging from Tom. Tom with another victory here. He gets back on the board after losing the college round to Lucas. Ryan Heath
heavy players aren't
really
real.
Struggle here in the 5 for 5.
I think that's the first question I've gotten right in 5 for 5 history. That might be.
I thought this was his chance. We were no longer asking him about a bunch of my favorite college players from 2004.
Thank you, Drew.
I thought this was his chance. But Tom's just that much smarter. Tom, 30 seconds to brag about your victory here before we go.
Well, look, I'll say this: great show. Obviously, thinking about thinking, everything like that. Stay tuned for all the ass that you need over at FantasyPoints.com. Ryan and Scott are working heavily on. I will say that I've spent years accumulating useless football knowledge, but more than that, as much as you need to know your league, you need to know your gaming opponents. And I have spent since 2018, since he absolutely fleeced me in a oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the running, but James White trade. Jakob has been someone that I have been studying. Knowing the OBJ and knowing all of the other little tidbits have helped me in this game. Know your opponents is one of the most important things in fantasy. Also, shout out. I believe this is my 4th win now here on the program. Shout out to everyone who played. We love each and every single one of you guys. Look, it was an hour and 43. We are eventually going to get these down. One day we'll get back to like an hour and 10. I promise. One day we will get Jakob a laptop that does not die. But to do so, once again, 65.6% of you are not subscribed. It means a lot to us. If you could, we love each and every single one of you. Thank you for tuning in. And just because one more time, we're going to ride out one more time with a bunch of best ball. Good night, everybody. Not talking best ball in this podcast.
A few moments later.
Best ball is best ball. Best ball. Best ball. Best ball pick. Best ball pick. Best ball.
As someone that makes the graphics for said program, it says Dynasty Points at the top. It doesn't say best ball points at the top. It's not even Dynasty best ball takes. Like, I could live with a Dynasty best ball take on the Dynasty Point show.
A few moments later.
Best ball, especially best ball. Best ball, like best ball.
They're best ball 80.
Best ball. Best ball.